Well, I have my cruise medical bill, and thinking about it, the way I answered one single question, it cost me hundreds of dollars. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host, Tony. I am back, baby, from the West Coast, back from California. Just completed a cool 7-day cruise on the NCL Bliss. And during that cruise, I had to visit the medical center. But the story doesn't really start on the NCL Bliss. The story starts about a week earlier on a short 4-day cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida on the MS Eurodam. That is a Holland America Line cruise. I think it had to be the 5th or 6th, almost the last day of the cruise. I got up, I was in the cabin, I got up from the bed and my knee on the left side made a popping sound, and it hurt after that point. It was very tight, it was very sore, I had trouble walking, and the last day of the cruise, I think it was the day before the last day of the cruise. The last day of the cruise was pretty tough walking around on the bum leg. Made it back to Florida, had 2 days before I left for California. And, you know, it was ginger. I even went back to the gym, and instead of walking the 2 miles a day that I walk, I would just walk like a mile. And I just like, okay, maybe this soreness will go away. Maybe it wasn't anything. I didn't really do anything preventative. I should have maybe got a leg brace or something like that. But this trip on the NCL Bliss was a trip that NCL had invited me on. They hired me to come make some videos for them. And, it was a big work trip. I had to go. And so, I didn't really think much about my leg other than the fact that I could just get through it. And that was probably a horrible strategy on my part. Everything was going good. The leg was starting to loosen up a little bit. I got through the travel day. I got through the first sea day. And then we came to our first port of call, which is in Cabo San Lucas. And I walked a couple miles that day. I walked over 10,000 steps and everything was going good. Got on a tender, went to Cabo San Lucas, went on an excursion out to see the natural arch. It was beautiful. Came back, walked around town a little bit, and then I boarded the tender to go back to get on the Norwegian Bliss. And when I boarded the tender, I had to go down a flight of stairs, which was pretty painful. And we were sitting at the back of the tender, and I noticed that you could go up onto the bow of the tender and get a really good shot of the cruise ships. And it was there where I had the problem. I took one step up, just like from the deck of the main area on the bottom of the tender, just one regular step up to get onto the bow. And when I put all the pressure on my knee, just in that one step, it popped again. And it popped even worse than it did on the Holland America cruise. And it was one of those things where the pain shot up so much that I thought I was going to pass out. I thought I was going to fall over, but I was able to make it to a chair. I was able to get these wonderful shots of the NCL Bliss because I was there to do a job. It's funny how you will stay motivated if you have a job to do. And I probably should say this. I am a super stubborn person. I did not reach out to my contact at NCL after I got hurt because I didn't want them to tell me to not do the work. That NCL is super nice to me through this whole process. My contact at NCL figured out I was hurt after watching the I Went to Medical video and immediately was like, man, are you okay? Is there anything we can do for you on the ship? So again, I got this weird thing in my head, and maybe it's the way I was raised, but I'm just like hardcore. It's like, man, you've asked me to do something and I'm going to get it done, and I'm going to suffer, that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's probably the wrong mindset or whatever. But again, every decision I made was a decision I made on my own. So I just don't want anybody to come away like, oh, I can't believe, they're making you work when you're hurt. Not that scenario at all. So, but yeah, back to the story. I was in a lot of pain. And now the challenging thing is this tender, once it got back to the Bliss, I had to climb a flight of stairs. I had to get up into the cruise ship. And it was pretty rough. But I did get back into the cruise ship, and I did continue to do stuff that day. I was in a lot of pain. I was taking the ibuprofen, trying to get the pain to go away in my leg. I was still going to the things that I needed to go to, the specialty dining, the shows, make sure I was capturing everything that I needed to capture. But by the end of the second day of the cruise, by the end of that Cabo day, I was really starting to get concerned about my leg. I was really worried, was I doing more damage to my leg by continuing to walk around? I knew that I had signed us up for what was considered a moderate to strenuous hiking activity in Mazatlan. The next day, we were supposed to go to the Sierra Madre mountain range and go see some cool vistas and walk around a lot. It said very plainly in the description, there's a lot of stairs and all that stuff. And I just sat there, you know, that first night after we came back from Cabo after my knee popped, and I was like, I don't think I can do it. And I'm not really one to say I don't think I can do things. It was a tough call, but made the decision to stay in the next day in Mazatlan. Spent most of the morning with my leg elevated, just trying to rest it up a little bit. And then I went looking for medical help. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the medical center. At least they can tell me or give me a brace or do something. And if you've seen the previous video, you saw how that went. I went to the medical center. They weren't open. There was an emergency number that I could call. I want to say that people are like, oh, you should have medical attention 24/7. They certainly do. But it's for emergencies. And since I could hobble down to the medical center and since I could somewhat manage my pain, I was like, well, I'm not going to dial 911. I'm going to wait till they are open. And so I waited till 6 p.m. and I went back. And again, if you saw that video, you saw how it turned out. 2 x-rays, they took my blood. They ended up giving me a knee brace. They gave me a bandage. And that's what I used for the rest of the cruise to try to manage it. Now, the interesting thing is as the days went by, my leg started feeling better. It's still sore now, but I can walk around on it without the same level of pain that I had during that second pop. And by no means am I a doctor. I don't know anything. I'm going to a doctor today. I'm going to another doctor tomorrow, one for my knee, one just for my general doctor. So obviously I believe in medicine and all that stuff, but just the way it played out physically for me is on Holland America. When the pop happened, my leg got really tight. And then when the pop happened on the tender, it got loose. So I don't know if I dislocated my knee and then popped it back in place. I don't know. Again, I'll have somebody tell me maybe what they thought happened. But the second popping, even though it was painful to the point where I wanted to pass out, it actually has made my leg feel better over the last few days. So continuing to take the ibuprofen. Unfortunately, the knee brace that they gave me didn't really fit, so I was wrapping my leg with like a gauze that they gave me. The knee brace that I purchased from Walmart, that was too small also. And then I did get a larger knee brace in from Amazon so that I'll have a larger knee brace. All that said, let me tell you about the bill, and then I'll tell you the one question that I answered that cost me hundreds of dollars. So the very top is professional services. It says new patient doctor visit. So if you go to the medical center there on the Bliss and you just say, hey, I need you to look at me for anything, 149 bucks. Then I have the miscellaneous procedure, the blood extraction and phlebotomy. They wanted to check my inflammation level. That's what I believe they told me by drawing blood. They could see something in my blood. Again, I was in pain. I didn't really understand what they were talking about. $43 for the blood extraction and the phlebotomy. The miscellaneous procedures, the initial pulse oximetry, they did do blood pressure and they did put the little pulse thing on my hand to see what my blood pressure and my pulse was, $32. Laboratory, I'm assuming that's the checking of the blood, $153. The Piccolo test, the MetLight Plus, $208. Let me look up what a Piccolo test is. Piccolo it's another blood test. And then they did x-rays on my knee. So the Piccolo, $208. The x-ray on the knee, $153. And then the supplies that they gave me, a self-adherent bandage roll. This is the thing that I ended up wrapping my knee with. They also gave me a transparent IV dressing. That was the Band-Aid. So they took blood from the front of my hand and they had to put a Band-Aid over it for $2. And then while I have my hand up here, they also used a catheter, a small catheter to take the blood that they put the Band-Aid over the catheter, $22. The neoprene knee support was the knee brace that they gave me, $29. And the elastic bandage 10-pack for $8. I'm not really sure what that is. I don't know that I got that. I didn't go through this while I was there. I probably should have went through it, but I don't think I got that $8 thing, but either way. So if you add all of that up, $738 for professional services, $74 for total supplies, for a grand total of $812. Now, interestingly, there is one thing I did during my examination, one question that I answered that may have done away with all $812 of charges if I would have answered the question a different way. I'm going to tell you all about that, but first let me invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. The question was simple. There was a nurse there that was doing the intake, doing the triage, and she said, hey, what's the problem? And I said, well, I was on the tender boat. I took a step up onto the bow and my knee popped and now I'm in a lot of pain. And she was like, okay, go sit over there. I'll bring you some paperwork. She brings me some paperwork over and I start to fill it out. And then I realize I'm at the top of the form. It says accident occurrence form. And the questions were like, where were you at when the accident occurred? Had you been drinking alcohol when the accident occurred? And it was a whole intake form dealing with an accident. And I started to fill it out and I filled out a couple questions and I'm like, well, I wasn't in an accident. My knee was already kind of jacked up. And it was a very, innocent thing where I just took a step up. The tender didn't throw me around. There were people in there because the tender ride was a little rough and I guess they gotten banged up. Maybe that's why she was giving me the form. And I started to get to a couple questions and then I was like, I'm not making an accident claim here. And so I went up there and I said, hey, I see this is an accident form. I didn't have an accident. I was just, living my life, stepped up on a step and my knee all popped out of place. I don't think I should be filling out an accident form. And she said, well, okay. But just to get seen for, some other reason, it's going to cost you $149 and you're going to incur charges and you're going to have to pay for all that. And I was like, yeah, I figured out that was pretty much the way it was going to go. And so they took away the accident form. I filled out the regular paperwork and now I have an $812 bill. But it didn't seem right to me. And I've seen some people in the comments on that original video like, well, you were on the tender, so you shouldn't have to pay anything. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, again, I could have just been walking around anywhere. My knee was all jacked up from the previous cruise. I could have just been walking around anywhere for the thing to pop. I didn't feel comfortable once I realized that, they were saying that I was claiming an accident because I wasn't claiming an accident. If it's not an accident, I'm not going to say it's an accident. I don't believe in rolling like that. I believe that if you sow the seeds of dishonesty, then bad things are going to happen to you. Now, fortunately, I practice what I preach. I do have travel insurance. I'm going to be making a claim to my travel insurance to recoup this $800. And it's another tale that I can use even anecdotally now to say it's important to have travel insurance when you cruise, even if you're going on a short cruise or a long cruise. Make sure you got that travel insurance or you could be paying hundreds of dollars. What do you think? How would you have answered that question? Would you continued on with the accident form? Are you surprised that the cost was $812 for what I got? Have you ever had to go to medical on a cruise ship? Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. It's Tony for La Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.